Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 9 Part 64 based on novel. So let's start. The surrounding natural yuan power began to rage and turn wild. As the lightning dragons whizzed around the bright red gates, the resulting fluctuation was so terrifying that it caused the expressions of many onlookers to change drastically. These three powerful attacks could instantly kill any initial profound life stage expert. In fact, even an advanced profound death stage expert would not dare to underestimate them. This fellow was actually able to rely on his perfect profound life stage strength to unleash an attack of this magnitude. Ancient Universe Formation, Reverse Rotation. Lin Dong stood in the air as majestic energy whistled around his body. At this moment, all the energy within his body had been activated. His seal technique changed and a low and deep cry was emitted. Rumble. The 10,000 feet large formation in the sky slowly rotated as vast and mighty energy gathered within the formation. Meanwhile, an extremely powerful fluctuation continued to radiate. 8-level burning sky gate, in formation. Lin Dong once again let out a stern cry. The burning sky cauldron vibrated and hummed, before 8 crimson light beams suddenly whizzed out from it and directly headed for the 8 burning gates in the sky. Bang! The 8 burning sky gates swelled when the 8 crimson light poured into them. Promptly, a bright red light beam shot out from each of them. They crisscrossed together before a 10,000 feet large volcano faintly took shape. 9 dragons return, Lightning Emperor seal. Lin Dong took a stride forward. The Lightning Emperor scepter in his hand suddenly unleashed a clap of thunder as dazzling lightning whistled forward. A shocking pressure erupted from the scepter. The Lightning Emperor scepter was a pure yuan treasure that did not lose out to the burning sky cauldron. In fact, it was even superior in terms of its offensive ability. However, Lin Dong did not unleash its full strength in the past. This time around, Lin Dong clearly had to unleash all his abilities in order to deal with the formidable foes in front of him. Rumble. 9 lightning dragon roar appeared in the sky. Their heads and tails were connected. Light from the lightning rotated and transformed into a huge lightning dragon seal, which was suspended in the sky. Such powerful attacks. When Tang Xinlian saw the 3 different attacks rotating in the sky, she suddenly clenched her hand. There was a shock in her eyes which could not be hidden. Even she could detect a whiff of danger from this attack. That guy. Tang Xinlian's pretty eyes stared at the young man standing in the sky. It seems like it was indeed justifiable for Mo Luo to hold him in such high regard. There seems to be strength hidden within his skinny body that she could not hope to rival. Lin Dong, we can only count on you. Hua Chen's and Xu Xiu's expressions changed slightly when they saw the shocking attacks in the sky. Their usually cold and mocking eyes finally revealed some shock. The attacks in front of them had far exceeded the limits of a perfect profound life stage expert. This is getting more and more shocking, Hua Chen laughed. An increasing amount of black flame surged out from within his body. Meanwhile, his jet black eyes became even gloomier. This brat is extremely dangerous. It is best to exterminate him. Xu Xiu stared at Lin Dong and slowly said, "Relax, he won't live past today." Hua Chen laughed ferociously. Lin Dong's eyes were indifferent as he stared at the 2 people in the distant sky. Without uttering a single useless word, he slowly lifted his hand and pointed at the 2 of them. A sharp glint suddenly surged into his eyes at the next moment. 3-prong attack, slay the demons. Bang! After Lin Dong's low cry sounded, light began to gather at a shocking speed within the large formation in the sky. Promptly, 1,000 feet large energy light ray suddenly shot forth. The 10,000 feet volcano was completed within the flame formation. Magma spluttered out from the top of the volcano as the entire volcano tore through the sky. Subsequently, together with a massive shadow, it directly pressed downwards towards the Hua Chen duo. Roar! The Lightning Emperor seal floated in the sky while lightning dragons rotated around it. A dragon roar sounded before it transformed into a bright lightning glow and whizzed downwards. Rumble. Three extremely powerful attacks ripped through the sky. Their momentum caused many experts to be terrified. It was likely that even an advanced profound death stage expert could only choose to hide from such an attack. Lindong, I will teach you that the gap between us is not something that your techniques can breach. However, Hua Chen merely laughed towards the sky when facing this fearsome attack. Monstrous black flame suddenly swept forth. The manner in which it blotted out the sun was quite frightening. Great sky demon body, demon's destruction. Black flame swept across the sky. At this moment, it appeared as though the entire immeasurable mirror had turned completely dark. Life-devouring palm. Xu Xiu extended his jet-black arms. A cold indifference was present in his eyes. He clenched his hand before the space behind him promptly collapsed. A 10,000 feet large black palm seemed to have ripped through another world and arrived here. Together with an endless evil aura, the palm attack charged forth. Bang boom! The entire place seemed to have exploded at this moment. Many huge cracks spread rapidly over the immeasurable mountain. The clash that was about to ensure caused the entire mountain to tremble. Swoosh! The majestic attacks whizzed past the sky. Finally, they collided violently like two flying meteorites in front of many pair of startled eyes. Boom! A loud sound appeared at the point of collision. An indescribable energy attack spread across the sky like a huge wave in an extremely spectacular fashion. Bang bang bang! The many towering peaks on the immeasurable mountain gradually collapsed under the resulting impact. Huge rocks rolled down and the land began to shake intensely. Countless pairs of eyes both within and outside the immeasurable mirror were staring intently at the epicenter of the energy assault wave. Just whose attack would emerge victorious in this fearsome clash? The wild and violent energy finally dissipated. Black flames rose after the energy scattered. After which, a loud laughter resounded. Lindong, is that your most powerful technique? It is hardly noteworthy. Many pairs of eyes followed the loud laughter. After which, they saw Hua Chen's body emerging from within the black flames. Although some injuries had appeared on his body, his aura was still exceptionally brutal and powerful. Some distance away, the ripped space behind Xu Xiu had also gradually disappeared. The 10,000 feet giant palm had also vanished unknowingly. He actually destroyed both our attacks. Xu Xiu's diamond-shaped eyes stared at the skinny figure in the distance. His eyes had involuntarily shrunk slightly. Although they had blocked 3 stunning attacks from Lindong, it was only possible after they had unleashed powerful attacks. He was aware that despite the cold smile and disdain Hua Chen wore on his face, the latter's heart was definitely a little stirred by Lindong's techniques. This kid was no ordinary individual. His attack was blocked. When Mu Lingshan saw this scene, dissatisfaction flashed across her large eyes as she spoke. It is nothing to be embarrassed about. The Hua Chen duo did not hold back when they were attacking as well. Yet, the both of them only managed to block the 3-prong attack from Lindong. This is not considered a failure from Lindong's point of view. Tang Xinlian shook her head slightly and said, even she would have difficulties blocking the previous attack from the Hua Chen duo. However, at the very least, that attack was blocked by Lindong. It is a little too early to be celebrating. In the sky, as the energy ripples slowly dissipated, a skinny figure suddenly appeared. Lindong looked at a distant Hua Chen and Xu Xiu, who were separated by the attack before the corner of his mouth was suddenly lifted into an arc promptly. He clenched both his hands. Green dragon light tattoos, every single of you emerge now. Roar! A resplendent green light suddenly erupted out from within Lindong's body. Together with a frightening ripple that would cause one's expression to change, all 50 green dragon light tattoos swept forth. An earth-shaking dragon roar resounded in the sky at this moment. This dragon roar had a terrifying energy fluctuation radiating from it. The space where the sonic wave passed even began to tremble. Countless pairs of eyes lifted up before they stared at the numerous green dragon light tattoos streaking across the sky in a startled fashion. A green dragon stretched its huge body and a vigorous energy was present. It looked like a terrifying force which could destroy mountains was hidden under the green dragon scales. A total of 50 green dragon light tattoos. That energy fluctuation caused the expressions of many onlookers to change. That strength actually surpasses that of Zhu Zi's 10,000 elephant heavenly skill. Tang Xinlian stared at the sky in disbelief. At this moment, the magnificent strength churning around Lin Dong had actually far surpassed that of Zhu Zi. This is Big Brother Lin Dong's killing move. It is rumored to be the ultimate skill of the ancient green dragon King Qing Shi. Mu Lingshan's big eyes were staring in an awestruck fashion at the figure that stood amongst the numerous green dragon light tattoos. She had never seen Lin Dong back down ever since she knew him. There seemed to be an endless amount of confidence in Lin Dong's heart. It was precisely this confidence that allowed him to accomplish extraordinary deeds. That fellow. Zhu Zi's expression was also a little complicated as he looked from afar. He learnt of the plan from Tang Xinlian, and it turns out Mo Luo actually thought most highly of Lin Dong. This caused him to feel a little unbalanced in his heart initially. After all, his reputation in the chaotic demon sea far surpassed that of Lin Dong, who had just shown up. Although he had heard of the many feats performed by the latter, he never expected that Lin Dong would actually surpass him in terms of strength. Hence, he involuntarily felt a little unhappy after he learned that Mo Luo had placed his final chips on Lin Dong. At this moment, however, this emotion gradually disappeared amidst his complicated feelings. The young man, who had stepped up at the final moment, did indeed use his own hands to turn the situation around with every ounce of his strength. Bang! The green dragon surged forward while green light gathered within Lin Dong's eyes. The expression in his eyes was unusually stern as he stared at a distant Hua Chen. In the next moment, his toes suddenly pressed on the ground before the dragon's shadow whistled across the sky. Majestic green light seemed to have penetrated through the air as it appeared in front of Hua Chen with an extremely shocking speed. How quick! When Hua Chen saw Lin Dong rushing towards him suddenly, he narrowed his eyes. Moreover, the 50 green dragon light tattoos surging around Lin Dong's body caused him to feel a piercing pain on his skin. Let's attack together! Black flames crazily gushed out from within Hua Chen's body. He had just let out a stern cry when his expression changed. This was because he realized that Xu Xiu was at a great distance away and it was impossible for the former to join forces with him. This brat! That shocking attack from before was actually meant to separate the two of us. Hua Chen's eyes flashed while the shock in his eyes grew. Humph, but even if I am alone, it will be all too easy to kill you. A ferocious expression quickly surged into Hua Chen's eyes as he laughed coldly. Black flames churned hurriedly over his body and finally gathered on his palm. Great Sky Demon Fire Demon Palm. A low and deep cry was suddenly emitted from Hua Chen's mouth while a frightening ripple spread from within his body. He quickly clenched his fist and threw a punch. Bang! Hua Chen's punch was extremely simple. However, everyone could see the space around him distorting at this moment. Black flames gathered crazily on his fist while a terrifying destructive force was unleashed from it. I will finish you in one move. A cold glint appeared in Hua Chen's eyes. His gaze was sinister as he stared at the green light figure in close proximity. The green light within Lin Dong's eyes had also agglomerated suddenly at this moment. He did not pull back in the face of this ferocious counterattack from Hua Chen. Instead, he clenched his fists tightly and threw it forward. Roar! 50 green dragon light tattoos hissed together. Just like a ferocious dragon exiting its lair, they agglomerated on Lin Dong's fist. Green dragon heavenly seat seal. The cry sounded and green light surged. An extremely bright green dragon fist suddenly formed under Lin Dong's fists. Finally, a fist penetrated through the empty space and ruthlessly clashed against the black flame fist, which was rushing over, in front of countless pairs of eyes. Bang! A low and deep sound reverberated across the sky like muffled thunder, the moment the collision occurred. Soon after, everyone saw a green and black tornado suddenly appearing at the spot where the two had clashed. The scattered violent energy directly split a huge mountain. Swoosh swoosh! Those experts, who were originally near to the battleground, had a drastic change in their expressions at this moment. Afraid of being dragged into the fight, they hurriedly stepped back. After all, it was likely that even an advanced profound death stage expert would wound up in quite a miserable state if he was dragged into that green-black tornado. Their fight has actually reached such a level. Shushio stared at the green-black tornado in the distant sky while his diamond-shaped eyes revealed a grave expression. Even he did not dare to easily underestimate this attack from Lin Dong. Boom! The two sides of the green-black tornado suddenly became distorted as countless pairs of eyes were focused on the crazily rotating tornado. Bang! Green light and black flames spluttered as two figures abruptly flew backwards. Each of them flew rapidly backwards by over 10,000 feet before they managed to stabilize their bodies. Swoosh! Every pairs of eyes present both within and outside of the immeasurable mirror gathered towards the two figures as they flew backwards. The first to dissipate was the green light and a skinny figure emerged. At this moment, his sleeves had been turned into dust. Blood rolled down his arm and began to drip down. That Hua Chen! Exclamations sounded while some onlookers were feeling stunned by Lin Dong's current condition. Immediately, many pairs of eyes hurriedly turned towards the other side of the sky. The black flames at that spot had begun to slowly vanish. Hua Chen, who was wrapped within, was also exposed in front of countless pairs of eyes. Hiss! The sound of cold air being inhaled appeared after Hua Chen surfaced. At this moment, Hua Chen's upper body was naked. Many wounds extended upwards from his arm and it covered his entire upper body. He looked relatively miserable. Of course, it was not merely Hua Chen's miserable appearance that shocked everyone. Instead, it was the fact that Hua Chen's right arm was distorted. A sharp bone pierced out from his shoulder as blood flowed from it. One of his arm was actually broken in that shocking previous clash. He actually broken one of Hua Chen's arm. The pupils of Tang Xinlian, Zhu Zi, and even the distant Xu Xiu suddenly shrunk at this moment. Surprise surged on their faces. No one expected that Hua Chen, who had defeated Tang Xinlian previously, actually had one of his arm broken in a head-on fight. The previous punch from Lin Dong was actually this terrifying? The sky was silent. Lin Dong panted heavily. Promptly, he gently clenched his hands. Devouring power surged within his body as it devoured those strange black flames which had invaded his body. He has only lost an arm, huh? He is really strong. Lin Dong lifted his head after he cleansed the energy which had invaded his body. He looked at Hua Chen's miserable appearance and frowned gently. A soft sigh was emitted. Hua Chen was indeed powerful. Never did he expect that he was still unable to kill Hua Chen despite activating all 50 green dragon-like tattoos. He is really powerful. Lin Dong sighed softly. In the distant sky, Hua Chen turned his head to look at his distorted arm. Immediately, his eyes flickered crazily. A moment later, his eyes returned to its frightening appearance. Using his left hand, he grabbed his right hand and jerked it ruthlessly. Crack! The sound of bone cracking appeared as blood spurted forth. After which, everyone was shocked when they realized that Hua Chen had actually torn off one of his own arms. Lin Dong looked at Hua Chen, who had withdrawn all the emotions on his face. Both his eyes narrowed slightly. That should be your strongest technique, am I right? Hua Chen slowly lifted his head. His extremely black eyes stared at Lin Dong as his merciless voice spread across the sky. Xu Xiu, undo the seal. I want to kill him. The surroundings were completely silent. Many pairs of eyes turned to focus on Hua Chen, who hovered in the sky and gave off a rich bloody scent. After his face experienced a terrifying distortion, he gradually calmed down. However, that peculiar calmness caused one's heart to feel increasingly cold as blood continued to drip from his arm. The distant Xu Xiu also appeared beside Hua Chen at this moment. He glanced at the latter's wounds and a tinge of shock flashed across his eyes. It was likely that he did not expect Lin Dong to be capable of hurting Hua Chen to such an extent. Like I said, this brat is a little strange. He must not be underestimated. Xu Xiu spoke in a dark and solemn voice. No matter. Hua Chen softly chuckled. He stared at the young man in the distance while bitterness and ruthless violence slowly surged. No matter how much he struggles, the outcome will be the same. That is, death. The smile on Hua Chen's mouth gradually became increasingly malicious. Promptly, his hand rubbed his broken arm, covering his palm with blood. Subsequently, he gently drew with his finger. Lines of blood gathered in front, and every stroke eventually transformed into countless peculiar blood-colored symbols. "Are you going to undo the seal?" When Xu Xiu saw this scene, his diamond-shaped eyes shrunk slightly. Ling Dong had actually forced Hua Chen until such an extent. Sizzle sizzle. The blood-colored symbol floated in front of Hua Chen. Suddenly, black flames rose from within the symbols. Then, the seal formed by Hua Chen's finger changed. Many burning black flame blood-colored symbols flew backwards. Finally, they shot into his brow, heart, dantian, and other key areas. Hua Chen's body came to a sudden halt after those symbols entered his body. His aura seemed to have mysteriously vanished from the world at this moment. When Tang Xinlian, Zhu Zi, and the rest saw this scene, their expressions changed. An uneasy sensation surged into their hearts. Lin Dong also frowned slightly as he stared at Hua Chen, whose aura had disappeared. He slowly clenched his fist. An eerie silence enveloped the entire place. However, this did not continue on for long. Suddenly, everyone felt their surroundings starting to turn cold. Creak creak. Black fog had unknowingly surged out from Hua Chen's body a little at a time. The release of this black fog actually resulted in a whining sound being emitted from the surrounding space. While the black fog spread, Hua Chen suddenly lifted his head. At this moment, there seemed to be blood gathering deep within his eyes. An evil that could not be concealed was present within his blood-colored eyes. Bang! Suddenly, Hua Chen opened up his blood eyes before his missing aura suddenly erupted once again. Moreover, his aura was actually soaring at a shocking speed. Wild gales swept over the horizon, causing Hua Chen's sleeves to flutter with the wind. At this moment, under the horizon which was filled with black fog, he looked just like an evil god descending into the world. This aura. Countless pairs of eyes outside the immeasurable mirror were shocked by the surge in Hua Chen's aura. No one had expected that the latter was actually hiding such massive strength. Damn it! Ji Mengqi clenched her hand tightly. The joy on her pretty face that had come about because of Hua Chen's broken arm had completely disappeared. Lin Dong had finally gained an upper hand after much difficulty. However, the situation had unexpectedly reversed so quickly. Worry also rose on Ji Yang's and Ji Yang's faces as they stood beside her. Hua Chen was truly terrifyingly strong. It was likely that there were no more than 5 people in the Ji clan who could beat him. It is indeed Yimo aura. Seated in the Flame Divine Hall, Mo Luo's crimson eyes suddenly became extremely sharp. He stared at the raging black qi in the immeasurable mirror while faint flames rose on the surface of his body. It is indeed the Yimo aura. However, it is not pure. The first elder of the Flame Divine Hall frowned and said, "Nonetheless, Hua Chen's strength has soared. Lin Dong will likely have a difficult time fighting with him." Even the first elder of the Flame Divine Hall was greatly startled by Lin Dong's previous attack. In fact, he was pleasantly surprised by the fact that the former actually broke one of Hua Chen's arm. Unfortunately, the advantage that he obtained with great difficulty had completely disappeared at this moment. It was indeed a little difficult for a younger generation member like Lin Dong to deal with the Yimo. Mo Luo stared at the immeasurable mirror. There was a skinny young man within who was also observing the unusual change happening to Hua Chen. However, when Mo Luo did not see much panic on that youthful face, he smiled. An admiration, which could not be hidden, rose from within his eyes as he said, "Qingji has extremely good eyesight. A young man whom he praised is definitely extraordinary. It is too early to be jumping to any conclusions before the end of the fight. It should be the strength of the devil's seed. This is indeed a little problematic." Lin Dong stared at the evil aura, which was spreading in a monstrous fashion. He curled his lips. Both his eyes were lowered. He was not overly surprised by Hua Chen's techniques. This was because the Huayuan trio had used a similar technique back then. "It seems like you are quite knowledgeable about this thing." Hua Chen's blood eyes looked at Lin Dong. There was an endless viciousness surging within them. He parted his mouth and smiled at Lin Dong. The previous rounds of attacks should have exhausted most of the yuan power in your body, am I right? Lin Dong frowned slightly as he clenched his hand. His yuan power cultivation was at the perfect profound life stage. This was much weaker compared to genuine advanced profound death stage experts like the Hua Chen duo. If it was not because he had help from his mental energy and the devouring ancestral symbol, which was quietly assisting him by swallowing the natural yuan power to replenish him, it was likely that he would not have been able to hold on for so long. What can the current you use to oppose me? Hua Chen curled the corner of his lips in ridicule. He laughed in an eerie manner. Relax, I will tear off all your limbs once I have defeated you. Lin Dong, let's attack together. Situated on a mountaintop behind, Tang Xinlian and Zhu Zi, who had rested briefly, also rushed forward and cried out in a deep voice. Judging by your current condition. Lin Dong glanced at the two of them and helplessly shook his head. The both of them had suffered quite severe injuries previously. Moreover, they did not possess the devouring ancestral symbol. Hence, it was clearly impossible for them to recover their strength within such a short span of time. We can at least block them for a while. Zhu Zi clenched his teeth. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and wariness as he stared at Hua Chen, who was covered with a black aura. He hesitated for a moment and said, that fellow is much stronger than before. You are no match for him. You should have exhausted much of your strength after fighting alone for such a long time. Tang Xinlian remarked. Lin Dong sighed as he waved his hand. Even if the two of them were to help, they could hardly do anything in their current state. Hence, he turned his head to look at Tang Xinlian before he softly said, trust me. Tang Xinlian was startled. Her pretty eyes looked at a solemn-looking Lin Dong. Even at this juncture, the latter did not have the slightest fear in his eyes. Be careful. Tang Xinlian gently clenched her hand. Although her mind told her that Lin Dong was in a pretty bad state, she did not voice any objections under the latter's gaze. Beside her, Zhu Zi involuntarily laughed bitterly upon seeing this. Was this fellow still trying to put up a brave front? You are truly a disciple of the Tao sect. Just as stubborn as Zhu Tong was back then. Hua Chen laughed softly after seeing this scene. His tone suddenly became stern. Unfortunately, your fate will be exactly the same as that of Zhu Tong. However, Lin Dong acted as though he did not see Hua Chen's cold smile. His body slowly descended from the sky. After which, he landed on a towering peak. Let's have an all-out fight. Lin Dong lifted his head. His dark black eyes stared at Hua Chen and Xu Xiu in the distance. After which, he slowly opened both of his hands before spreading them apart. There was a strange seal being formed on his fingertips. Buzz buzz. The land under Lin Dong's feet suddenly trembled gently in front of many pair of uncertain eyes. A strange pulse-like ripple appeared and swept across the place with a bang. An uproar suddenly sounded following the spread of this ripple. This was because they could see that the land within a 500-kilometer radius was actually becoming desolated at a shocking rate. Is this? Hua Chen's blood eyes suddenly shrunk as he saw this scene. An extreme feeling of danger surged into his heart. Great desolation scripture? The entire land began to tremble just like an earthquake was taking place. The mountains shook and huge rocks came tumbling down. A withered yellow-like desolate color originated from under Lin Dong's feet and swiftly spread into the distance at a shocking speed. The originally lush green mountains swiftly became withered and yellow. A wasteland-like desolation quietly enveloped the land. This drastic change immediately attracted the attention of countless experts. Promptly, all their expressions quickly changed drastically as disbelief filled their eyes. This was because they could vaguely sense that all the life force in the land was tunneling into the ground and gathering together, before they flowed towards the same location. Swoosh! Every pair of eyes followed the direction. At that end location, there was a young man standing on the ground spreading both his palms. At this moment, his skinny figure looked just like a gigantic statue that could hold up the sky. Is this? Tang Xinlian, Zhu Zi, and the rest were startled as they stared at the land beneath their feet. They were very powerful as well and had sharp senses. Hence, they realized that the land seemed to be in an extremely wild and violent state at this moment. Waves of energy that belonged to the land was actually swiftly pouring into that distant figure. He is actually able to absorb the energy of the land. What an overbearing and mysterious martial arts! Tang Xinlian's pretty eyes brightened slightly. Her eyes were searing hot as she looked at that skinny figure. That young man, who was around the same age as her, might appear ordinary on the surface. However, concealed within his ordinary appearance were deep mysteries that were difficult for one to fathom. Beside her, Zhu Zi nodded his head. Then, he lowered his body and grabbed the soil with his hand. A desolate aura was emitted from the soil and it caused him to feel as if he had returned to the ancient desolate era. I wonder if this is enough to oppose Chen Hua. Bang! Numerous cracks suddenly appeared on the mountain where Lin Dong was standing at. Wild and violent energy soared towards the sky from within these cracks and they actually broke through the cloud layer in the sky. At this moment, majestic waves of energy were gathering around Lin Dong's body like an ocean. His surrounding space became increasingly distorted as this powerful energy surged. The intensity of these energy waves caused the eyes of even some advanced profound death stage experts to turn extremely grave upon seeing it. At this moment, those people looking at this spot would realize that the area within a 30-mile radius of immeasurable mountain had turned into a wasteland. The energy in this place had been completely drained before it was all eventually absorbed by Lin Dong. You have indeed successfully mastered the Tao sect's Great Desolation scripture. Hua Chen stared at Lin Dong, whose aura was also surging. The cold smile that was originally present on his face had gradually disappeared. Although his eyes still remained dark and solemn, he had no choice but to admit that Lin Dong indeed possessed the strength for him to take him seriously. He no longer dared to underestimate and mock him like he did before. Indeed, anyone who was not a fool would no longer maintain such an attitude after witnessing Lin Dong continuously unleashing his shocking potential in front of them. However, do you think that you can stop me with this? Hua Chen's eyes suddenly became ferocious. Both his hands suddenly formed some seals as a low roar was emitted from his throat. It was possible to see a vague black symbol appearing on his brow. Monstrous black chi spread and the entire sky became increasingly dark. Many pairs of eyes were watching these two, who seemed to have pushed themselves to their limits. There was shock present in their eyes that could not be concealed. Who would have imagined that they would push themselves till such an extent in this competition? Disregarding the younger generation members, the intensity of their fight was something that hardly any older generation members could aspire to. Damn it, Hua Chen's aura had grown even stronger. Tang Xinlian stared at Hua Chen, whose aura had surged again before she involuntarily gritted her teeth. Right now, the two of them are fighting with all their strength. Zhu Zi laughed bitterly. At this moment, it was impossible for the both of them to stop. One would be hurt when two tigers clashed. It's not enough. Lin Dong slowly extended his hand. Promptly, he quickly clenched it before majestic energy gathered in his palm. Immediately, even the space itself trembled gently after he clenched his palm. At this moment, Lin Dong knew that as long as he wanted to, he could shatter immeasurable mountain with his fist. However, when he lifted his head to look at the monstrous black fog in the distance, he found that Hua Chen's aura had also grown stronger. Hence, with his current strength, he was still unable to resolve every problem with a single strike. Great Desolation Scripture? Unleash your full strength. Allow your name to spread across this distant chaotic demon sea. A soft mutter spread over Lin Dong's heart. He suddenly bent his body in the next instant and slammed both his hands solemnly onto the ground. Bang! Immediately, the entire mountain began to tremble violently. Hum hum. An extremely powerful pulse emerged from within Lin Dong's palm after he slammed it downwards. The entire land began to shake. Everyone could see that the desolation, which had ceased spreading, was once again being extended rapidly. 30 miles. 100 miles, 150 miles. As Lin Dong grew increasingly powerful, the might of the Great Desolation Scripture had unknowingly reached a shocking level. When Lin Dong first activated the Great Desolation scripture back at the unique Devil City, he was merely able to turn the area within a 30-mile radius into wasteland. However, right now, the area of effect had expanded several times. The desolation spread crazily. Finally, it gradually slowed in front of countless pairs of stunned eyes. By the time the reach of the desolation was at its limit, the area within a 250 radius of immeasurable mountain had completely turned into a withered and yellow world. A desolate aura rose and spread over the land. Even the raging black fog was being pushed back. Crack! Lin Dong slowly stood up. A huge crack spread from under his feet as Lin Dong slowly stood up. Immediately, cracks covered the entire mountain. He lifted his head to look at Hua Chen, who now had an ugly expression on his face, while an icy arc slowly lifted on the corner of his lips. Roar! Bright green light surged out from Lin Dong's body in all directions. Soon after, an earth-shaking dragon roar sounded. Subsequently, countless individuals were startled when they saw numerous green dragon-like tattoos flying out from within Lin Dong's body at a shocking speed. 10, 50, 100, 200, 300. A total of 300 green dragon-like tattoos swiveled around Lin Dong's body. They hissed and roared. A spatial distortion that was visible to the naked eye spread apart and the surrounding land cracked crazily. 300. Tang Xinlian, Zhu Ziyi, and the others were startled as they looked at Lin Dong, who was wrapped by a green dragon light. Previously, when Lin Dong summoned 50 green dragon-like tattoos, he was able to break one of Hua Chen's arm. Hence, against 300 of them, even they could detect a rich feeling of annihilation. There was definitely a huge difference between 350 of them. Bastard! At this moment, Hua Chen's pupils suddenly shrunk. Promptly, he cursed furiously. He also felt the sensation of impending doom due to that 300 green dragon-like tattoos. Xu Xiu, attack together with me. Although Hua Chen felt extreme dissatisfied in his heart, he still let out a furious cry. After all, he knew that it was going to be extremely difficult for him to block this all-out attack by Lin Dong on his own. At this moment, shock and seriousness filled the eyes of Xu Xiu. He looked at a distant Lin Dong, who was covered by green dragon-light symbols, before he involuntarily cried out furiously. I told you we should have attacked him together and killed him. This brat is no ordinary individual. Although he was furious, Xu Xiu also understood the current situation. He immediately clenched both his fists as his entire body swiftly turned black. A dark and sinister fluctuation rapidly emerged. Lin Dong's body slowly rose into the sky. Deep within his jet-black eyes, the green light gathered and formed a crouching green dragon. Promptly, he looked at the two individuals in the distance, who seemed like they were about to face a great enemy. He gently lifted his hand before a quiet voice resounded. Go. Roar. A dragon roar resounded in the sky. After which, countless people felt their skulls turn numb when they saw 300 green dragon-like tattoos whistled forth at this moment. The entire immeasurable mountain began to collapse at this moment. This video will end here.